Let me see here. Now, first of all, again, title is Regional Hydrogen Production, Transitioning the World Away from Fossil Fuels and Black Carbon. Now, there's a very specific reason I'm mentioning black carbon, because most people haven't heard of it. A lot of people have heard of it, but most people don't know the damaging effects of it. So I'm going to kind of divulge a little bit more about why and how I got to this hydrogen discovery because of black carbon. But before I do that, let me just give you a little bit of information about me. Who is Don Owens? First of all, I'm the founder and chairman of the H&O International. H&O International is my company. We're a public company, recently public. I'm a founder of a coalition against black carbon, which is a nonprofit. I got a mechanical engineering degree from General Motors Institute way back in the time when General Motors Institute was actually General Motors Institute. Now, some of you all may be too young to even know that even existed. But I also have a law degree from Georgetown University. I developed a product called a Leaf H2. In fact, that's the reason why I know so much about hydrogen. It was actually a little electrolyzer that we were using to combine with combustion engine gases so they can reduce black carbon. And we found out it can reduce black carbon by 50% at least. And also I wrote a book. Once I discovered that and I realized that black carbon really is the enemy of the planet, I wrote a book about it because we know that hydrogen can actually be used to reduce black carbon. But hydrogen, how great is hydrogen? Now, you know, the thing about it, I'm talking to a bunch of people who love hydrogen, so I don't really have to tell you all the advantages of hydrogen, but hydrogen is unbelievable. It's the most abundant element in the universe. 75% of all mass in the universe is hydrogen, something we'll never run out of. It can be made from renewable energies. It's no greenhouse gases. Only water is a byproduct. It can power vehicles, generate electricity, and power industry. Now, you see the last line? It can replace fossil fuel. You see the question mark I have behind there? I have that question mark there for a reason. And I'm going to tell you about something right now. Most people have never heard of the fossil fuel energy infrastructure because it's a term that I developed myself. It's an infrastructure. What is the fossil fuel energy infrastructure? It's an ocean of energy. And I didn't say lake of energy. It's an ocean of energy created by fossil fuels. We live in that ocean of energy. The fact that we can sit in a place like this with all this power and lights and comfort, it's because of the fossil fuel energy infrastructure. And we're like fish in the ocean. Some of us are whales. If you look at Google Cloud, they are whales. They use a lot of energy. And some of us are minnows. We don't use that much, but we all use it. And if we don't have it, we will all die like fish out of water. So we can't expect to get rid of the fossil fuel energy infrastructure. It is here to stay. But again, tell you a little bit about it. It's responsible for everything we've achieved. We went to the moon because of the fossil fuel energy infrastructure. You know, now not only was it powering that, you know, the fossil fuels powering the spacecraft, but back in the at mission control, they had let's see, what's my other light doing here? Hey, stupid light. I'll just do that. They had computers. They had air conditioning. They had bathrooms. They could flush the toilets. That's all because of the fossil fuel infrastructure. It's how we live. It's the reason why we can have airplanes. It's the reason why we can have these cities. It's, you know, just like we just had lunch. Agricultural equipment. You see that? Has anybody ever thought about how many billions of potatoes that we make every year? Billions. And, you know, and it's all, and potatoes is just one thing. But you think about all the things that we do with our electricity and with our energy, it is vast. The fossil fuel energy infrastructure is vast. And when I say vast, I want you to really understand what vast means. Now, I have a picture there of the universe. Now, I'm going to give you kind of an equation with vastness, what vastness means. Because when you look at that, those aren't just stars. That was a little piece, about 1 inch square of the James Webb telescope that took a picture of a dark area of space that had thousands of galaxies in it. It is vast. The universe is inconceivable. We can't even imagine it. But I want to equate that to the fossil fuel energy infrastructure. Even though it's not as vast as the universe, it's vaster than you can imagine. You can't even think about how truly vast it is and how important that energy is for our very survival. But you look at computers, rocket ships, everything is all because of the fossil fuel energy infrastructure. And it's the good, it's the bad, and the ugly. Now, some of you might be too young to remember that movie with Clint Eastwood, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Well, the good, the good is what we can now do with this infrastructure. We all take it for granted. Even clean, renewable energy is dependent on the fossil fuel energy infrastructure. We couldn't build no windmills or electric cars or solar panels without it. So it's vital. I mean, and so I don't want anybody, and I want people to differentiate between the fossil fuel energy infrastructure and the fossil fuel industry. Now, people like to come down hard on the fossil fuel industry, but we are always responsible for the demand on the fossil fuel industry. The fossil fuel industry helps to create the infrastructure that we all live in. We all are appreciative. Like I remember once being in Vegas, and it was 116 degrees outside. We was inside eating dinner in one of the restaurants, and we was just cool as a cucumber. And I was so happy that somebody was generating some power. I didn't even care if it was cold because we needed the infrastructure. I couldn't imagine being in that hotel at 116 degrees. So we need this power. It's part of how we live. It's unavoidable. And the things we take for granted, like hospitals, all these things are part of the infrastructure. Anybody wear glasses? You ever think about the little screws that they make on the glasses and how many people wear glasses and where did they make that? I can guarantee you they don't make it in the jungle. And they don't, monkeys bring it in to the side and everybody just pick them up. They're made in comfortable surroundings, just like right here. And it's all because of the fossil fuel energy infrastructure. And again, it goes on forever. Airplanes. Anybody ever travel to another country? Anybody ever wear clothes? Do we all wear clothes? Aren't you happy that people wear clothes? But most people don't realize how extensive it is just to produce the clothes that we wear, and how important it is for that infrastructure to exist just so we can wear clothes, just so we can go to the movies, just so we can see all the things that mankind has invented. But that's the good. Anybody ever brushed their teeth? I don't sleep with one hand. I'm just kidding. But that's the good. But we also have bad. The bad is we use it and we benefit from it, but we are inadvertently harming our environment. We don't want to harm our environment, but we do. When you look at trash that's being accumulated, you look at all the stuff that we use to create energy and to run our factories. I ordered this pointer from Amazon the other day. It came in a box. And what am I going to do with all that material? Am I going to keep it stored in the house? No, you throw it away. I didn't want to throw it away. You see that right there? That might be the trash that I had or the trash that you had right there under that fish. Because we all dispose of all this stuff. And we don't want to destroy our environment, but we can't keep that stuff in the house. So that is the bad of the fossil fuel energy infrastructure. And then there's the ugly. The ugly of the fossil fuel energy infrastructure is black carbon. Black carbon is the enemy of the planet. It is unburned fossil fuel. Fossil fuel that we use that's not quite completely combusted. And because it does, it creates this black carbon. It gets in the atmosphere. It's 1,500 times worse than CO2. People talk about CO2. This is actually 15. Now, notice I didn't say 1 or 2 times worse. I said 1,500 times worse than CO2. And I honestly believe it's not one of the causes. It is the cause for climate change. Because what does it do? Black carbon coats the glaciers, causes them to melt. And nobody can deny that. You start seeing glaciers that look like this, that's supposed to be white as snow. That's not white as snow. And what happens is when that black carbon gets on it, it ends up absorbing heat and causes them to melt. And when they melt, they change the currents, climates, the current change, ocean currents change, and it causes all kinds of catastrophes that we are witnessing with our own eyes. Now, I don't know how much of this we would have been doing if we lived 100 years ago, because we didn't have internet. We didn't know that it was flooding all over the place. But we know now where everything floods and why. So, but people honestly think that this is really because of climate change. And despite a major push toward renewables, as you can see, we're starting to spend more and more money on renewable energy. But despite the major push toward it, renewable energy is requiring what? The fossil fuel energy infrastructure. And because of it, last year, more black carbon produced than ever. Our glaciers are melting 3 times even faster. Now, I'm not going to go into all the things about black carbon, but we all know why we need hydrogen. Among other things, it can reduce black carbon, but why we need it now because we need the hydrogen production, not in 2030, not in 2035, not in 2040 or 2050. 2024 is when we need to start producing hydrogen. And that's what we're going to be talking about. And what comes first, the chicken or the egg? The chicken represents hydrogen applications. And I'm so happy that people are developing hydrogen applications. They're developing more and more every day. Fuel cells, this, that, everything using hydrogen. But I remember seeing these hydrogen cars years ago, and the thought that came in my head was, where are you going to get your hydrogen from? These things are wonderful, but where are you going to get your hydrogen from? That's the egg. The egg is a very important part of this because the infrastructure has to exist for those applications to work, okay? And without infrastructure, the applications almost don't matter, but applications are critical for us to develop them, but we do have to have infrastructure. Just a case in point, California, Shell just closed all of their hydrogen refueling stations. They have an article here about how hydrogen car owners are still waiting for the future. They got these cars and they can't find fuel for them. They got to drive hundreds of miles just to go get fuel. And if you have a hydrogen car, if you live in Alabama or any other place, you're going to be towing that car to the restaurant. Well, and then tow it back because you can't drive it, can't get any fuel. But this is why we can't wait. But this is the philosophy. The current philosophy, I believe, is well thought, or not well thought of, but I can't think of what I'm trying to say, but well-intentioned. Thank you. It's very well-intentioned, very well-intentioned, but it's not going to work. It's typically around big projects, big money, long lead time, centralized production, and then everybody mentioned today 45B or C or whatever that thing is, because it disencourages people to invest. Because if you don't know if you're going to get your money back, you can't invest billions of dollars. And but the hydrogen hub philosophy is a good philosophy, but one of the projects, one of the objectives is to establish 10 regional hubs for $7 billion. And that means that the possibility of, if you just average it out, the possibility of $875,000 per location. That's nothing to sneeze at. And the possibility of hundreds of millions of dollars per location is very, very real. But that's the current philosophy. But it's a little bit wasteful. In fact, it's patterned after the typical oil and gas industry in terms of one large location. Then you have liquefaction. You can only service certain types of vehicles for offtake. And generally, those vehicles are going to be transporting liquid hydrogen because it doesn't make sense to transport gaseous hydrogen because the volumes aren't large enough. There's a big footprint big carbon footprint when you do that. We have companies, or at least municipalities in California, that are getting their hydrogen from Missouri. Maybe $2 a kilogram to produce it, but by the time you ship it, it's $35 a kilogram by the time it gets there. So, and the carbon footprint that it was generated. You know, those are not hydrogen fuel cell trucks carrying that stuff. That's diesel trucks, okay? So we have lots and lots of problems with the current philosophy. It's costly, it's wasteful, but it's all we can do as of now. Converting the gas to liquid, all those things hurt us. But our philosophy is a little bit different. Now, my company, by the name, is H&O Green Fuels, H&O International. Our philosophy believes in a regional production, regional local production, smaller production locations, the ability to service smaller customers for offtakes, smaller resources and bureaucracy to get started. You can actually use fuel cell trucks for local delivery. And the same, just to give you an example, the same money for $7 billion for 6 plants across 6 or 8 plants across the United States can develop anywhere about 1,400 to 1,500 locations of these small hydrogen production facilities. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that too, but there's no extra cost on liquefaction, cross-country state transportation. That's not necessary anymore. Our mission at H&O Green Fuels, H&O International. H&O, by the way, stands for hydrogen and oxygen. The N isn't like an N, but it's hydrogen and oxygen. But our mission is to provide cost-effective, modular, scalable systems that can produce, store, and dispense green hydrogen. We support existing and emerging hydrogen markets, regional hydrogen production, hydrogen offtake, logistic and transportation for refueling. Our primary objective is to produce and distribute hydrogen when? Now, right now. And our first offering is something called SHEP. Now, you've been given a little brochure on your desk, but SHEP stands for Scalable Hydrogen Energy Platform. Now, the thing about SHEP that's interesting, it's a scalable platform that can produce green hydrogen for developers, companies, communities, municipalities, and more. It's a low lead time, it's cost effective, and everything is made in the USA. Now, the thing about SHEP 2 is we're going to have one ready this year in Texas in June of 2024. So SHEP is our, because it is scalable, you can make anywhere from 500 kilograms to 5,000 kilograms a day. Our other thing that we are introducing is a product called CHRIS. Now, CHRIS and SHEP, they're like brothers, I guess, or like family. But CHRIS stands for Compact Hydrogen Refueling Station. It's also compact design, it's low maintenance, it's customizable, it's mobile. We can make hydrogen storage and hydrogen generation, depending upon your application. Now, the thing about CHRIS is that's not just a concept. We've actually filled a hydrogen Mirai with CHRIS. Now, we came up with the idea of CHRIS back in January of last year, 2023. And what happened, the reason why we came up with it, because one of our guys came to town that was coming in town for a meeting, and he happened to drive a hydrogen fuel cell car to the meeting. And it just so happened about 2 months before, we had gotten these little electrolyzers in the office from Germany. And it dawned on us then that we can actually fill that car with these little bitty electrolyzers. And 10 months later, we were filling a hydrogen car with those electrolyzers. So we know CHRIS can work, and because it's working now. But what our objective is also is to use Chris and Shep and Chris and distribute them all throughout the United States. Now, you can't really see those little dots in the United States, but we have a blow up of this area. This is a blow up of Texas. And those little red spots that you see there, those are Sheps. And those Sheps are surrounded by little green spots, which are Chris. So we can actually produce hydrogen in one location and either produce hydrogen at those other locations, but all of that area, all of Houston and all of Texas and all of California and all of Florida can be populated with these very small but very portable and very useful hydrogen production facilities. And that can happen now. Now, I want to emphasize now, because now is what's important. We also have a couple other products that I'm not going to go into detail, but Leaf H2 is leveraging energy efficient fuel with hydrogen. And that's how I discovered that black carbon was the enemy of the planet, because we found out by using hydrogen, and that's what a lot of people are mixing hydrogen with fuels now. It lowers the emissions. It lowers the black carbon. It lowers the amount of unburned fuel. So hydrogen is very, very important. And we also want to use that in mobile applications. And, you know, so, but also we have a hydrogen carbon cleaner, which we use now to clean that carbon out of engines that are currently running, you know, or at least on the roads. But those are some of our products. But what I want to kind of close with, not quite close, but it's something called point, not talk. Okay. And point, not talk means in the second quarter of 2024, we will actually have designed, constructed, and set up the first of thousands of energy platforms that will actually produce green hydrogen. This won't be something on the drawing board like a lot of projects are, and it will actually be up and running in Katy, Texas. Now, I was talking to a guy yesterday from Australia, because they're trying to put together a big hydrogen production facility for fueling a lot of ships. So, but it's a very, very big facility. And one of the things they mentioned was that in Australia, they have a lot of gunners that are producing most of their hydrogen. And most people have never heard of gunners. Anybody heard of gunners in Australia? Well, what I found out he was talking about was people that were gonna do something with hydrogen. Everybody's gonna do something at some point, but they don't do it. What we're talking about is pointing. I'm not gonna have anybody ask, well, if somebody asks me, well, what do we do? How do you make hydrogen? I'm not gonna talk, I'm going to point. I'm gonna say, look, here it is. These are the components that you need. These components are not rare earth. They're not rare. They're not. I mean, compressors and electrolyzers. That's not new technology, but it's technology that, unfortunately, right now people have not, for whatever reason, had the wherewithal to figure out that you can do it now. Now, you know. So that's where we're talking point, not talk, and. Just a little bit about the company, my company, H2O International. We are a public company, publicly traded company, but we came public in a non-traditional way. What happened was we had a small group of friends and family that bought an existing shell, cleaned it up, renamed it to H2O International, and now it's fully reporting to the SEC. So we actually have a public company, and we've also qualified to do a capital raise through what's known as the Regulation 1A. So we actually can inform investors of what we're doing. Right now, the stock price is $1. And we clicked on that symbol, you can go to this link here that talks about the Regulation A. It has the offering statement and everything else. And but everything you need to know about the company, all that stuff is all registered with SEC. And, you know, again, nobody can guarantee anything, but hydrogen is big. We know how to make it. We're gonna make thousands of these machines, of these platforms, and this stock is going places. And but review the offering. And the last but not least, I'm gonna have a shameless plug here. I wrote a book called Burn Fuel Better, And I think there's a copy of it right there. What Burn Fuel Better is all about is how to use hydrogen to help burn our fuel better. The fossil fuel energy infrastructure is not going away anytime soon. So we all need to recognize that. Hydrogen is not a panacea that's going to save us from all of this, of what we're doing. But hydrogen is a way that we can start moving in the right direction, and burning our existing fuel better works. So you can reduce the amount of particulate matter, and so you can also reduce the black carbon. But that's basically it. I have a couple of organizations. One is called Black Carbon Coalition. I have a nonprofit called Coalition Against Black Carbon. As you can probably see, I have something against black carbon, but because it's really destroying our planet. But that's basically it for my presentation. Hope it makes sense to everybody that what we're talking about trying to do.
Thank you so much. Please catch Dawn during our next break to ask questions. Thank you so much.